They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. But what if a single photo could cost a life? When Simone Harper pressed post on that wedding picture, she wasn't sharing a secret. She was sharing her joy. Yet, within less than an hour, that one moment of happiness sparked a storm so violent it would change everything. Her husband, her supposed soulmate, would rather destroy her life than let the world see his face. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you ignored every warning, every inconsistency, just because you wanted so desperately to believe in them? Why would a husband, barely 24 hours after saying, "I do," decide to silence his wife forever, all because of a Facebook post? The answer isn't just chilling. It's almost unthinkable. This isn't merely a tale of betrayal. It's a warning. A reminder that trust can be the most dangerous gift you'll ever give. So before you share your life with the world, before you push aside that small voice whispering doubts about the one you love, ask yourself, is there something they're terrified the world might find out? By the end of this story, you'll understand why that question might just save your life. Let's go back to the beginning, where love and lies collided and the truth cost her everything. Welcome to Ruthless Realities. Thank you all for your continued support as we work to bring you daily told and untold true crime stories. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates. Simone was known for her warmth, the kind of woman whose laughter could fill a room and whose social media reflected a life of quiet strength and hope. At 52, she had endured more heartbreak than most. Failed relationships, broken promises, and the lingering weight of loneliness. Yet despite it all, she never let go of her belief that love could still find her. For years, she watched friends post wedding photos and anniversary tributes online. She cheered them on while quietly wondering if that kind of joy would ever be hers. Then came a trip that changed everything. A spontaneous vacation to Colombia. She booked it on a whim, craving a change of scenery and a chance to reset her life. What she didn't expect was to meet someone who reignited that unshakable hope. He appeared like a scene from a dream, handsome, charismatic, attentive in ways that made her feel seen. Jamal Rivers had a smile that felt genuine, the kind of presence that could make you feel like the only person in the world. Still, there was something about him. He was private, almost too private, but in a way that seemed intriguing rather than suspicious. They met at the resort's poolside bar, where the air was thick with tropical flowers and the salt of the sea breeze. She was sitting alone, watching the sunset, when he struck up a conversation. He asked about her life, listened as though her words mattered, and made her laugh, a deep, rare laughter she hadn't felt in months. By the end of the evening, she knew she wanted to see him again. He seemed just as eager to stay by her side. For the rest of the trip, they were inseparable, exploring local markets, sharing candlelit dinners by the shore, and dancing under starlight as waves crashed nearby. When the vacation ended, their connection didn't. They exchanged numbers, promised to keep in touch, and followed through. What started as daily text messages turned into late-night calls that stretched until sunrise. But as close as they became, pieces of him remained a mystery. He spoke little about his past, only vague references to bad luck and a desire to move forward. Questions about his childhood or family were met with short, dismissive answers, as though those parts of his life no longer mattered. One thing, however, was crystal clear. Jamal hated social media. He called it a toxic space, full of people who didn't want to see others happy. He insisted on keeping his life private, sharing only with those closest to him. For Simone, whose joy was often expressed through travel photos and heartfelt posts, this was a sharp contrast. She saw her online presence as a way to connect, to inspire, to share her journey. At first, she struggled to understand his stance, but love demands compromise. She told herself everyone has boundaries, and this was his. Respecting his privacy seemed like a small sacrifice for a relationship that made her feel alive. Still, there were unsettling moments. When she suggested taking photos together, he always had an excuse. "Let's just live in the moment," he'd say with a charming grin. Sometimes, she'd catch him staring into the distance, lost in thought. But whenever she asked what was on his mind, he'd brush it off with a laugh. Even with unanswered questions, she clung to the relationship, convinced it was her second chance at happiness. Their love story unfolded like a whirlwind. Fast, passionate, full of promise. Months later, Jamal proposed. It wasn't a grand production, but a quiet, heartfelt moment during a surprise weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin. Beneath a blanket of stars, he knelt and asked her to be his forever. She said yes without hesitation, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed with gratitude that love had finally found her. But even in this joy, his boundaries stood firm. Simone imagined announcing their engagement, posting a picture of the ring, and basking in her friends' congratulations. Instead, he reminded her of his feelings about social media. "I'd rather keep this between us," Jamal said softly. "Our love is special, and I don't want it tainted by people who don't understand." Though it stung, she told herself it wasn't about the likes or comments. It was about the man she was marrying. So the engagement remained private, known only to a small circle of loved ones. As the wedding day approached, Simone's excitement grew. She'd attended so many weddings as a guest, quietly wishing for her turn. Now it had finally come. The ceremony was intimate. Close friends and family in a small chapel filled with fresh flowers, their fragrance mingling with the soft strains of music. She was radiant in her white gown. Train flowed behind her, eyes fixed on the man she believed would be her forever. Their vows trembled with emotion, sealed with a kiss as applause echoed through the space. It was everything she had dreamed of, yet part of her still longed to capture the moment and share it with the world. As the newlywed stepped into a shower of rose petals, she reached for her phone, eager to take a picture. But Jamal stopped her with a gentle touch to her arm. "Let's keep this just for us," he whispered. She hesitated, then nodded, smiling as she slid the phone back into her bag. Their reception was just as intimate as the ceremony. A candlelit dinner with their closest loved ones, heartfelt toasts, and a quiet first dance beneath strings of twinkling lights. It was the kind of night Simone Harper had dreamed about for years, filled with laughter, warmth, and the comforting belief that her future was finally secure. Yet through it all, the absence of photographs and social media posts felt strange. Friends and family asked if she would share the pictures later, and she assured them she would. But deep down, she knew she wouldn't. For Jamal Rivers, privacy was non-negotiable, and for her, love meant compromise. She reminded herself that a marriage wasn't defined by public declarations, but by the quiet, sacred moments they shared when no one else was watching. As they left the reception hand in hand, heading toward their honeymoon destination, Simone truly believed she had made the right choice. But the cracks in their picture-perfect love story had already begun to form, and soon the man she thought would protect her heart would become the source of a nightmare she could never have imagined. The honeymoon was breathtaking. The ocean stretched endlessly, waves whispering against the shore. The air carried the scent of salt and blooming flowers. Their suite overlooked the water, sunlight pouring through wide windows, painting the room in gold each morning. Simone woke slowly, savoring the quiet bliss. Jamal lay beside her, breathing softly. She turned toward him, gratitude swelling inside her. This was it, the life she had always wanted. As he slept, she reached for her phone. It wasn't about bragging. It was about sharing joy too big to keep to herself. After all the heartbreak and years of loneliness, she had found love again. Scrolling through her gallery, she paused at a candid shot taken by one of their guests. Their smiles were wide, genuine. She hesitated for only a moment before selecting it. Her fingers danced over the keyboard. "Just got married, Red Heart. I love you, baby." She smiled as she hit post. She imagined her friends celebrating with her, flooding the comments with congratulations, heart emojis, and kind words. But within the hour, the tone of her honeymoon shifted. Jamal's phone rang. He groggily answered, his voice heavy with sleep. On the other end, a sharp, panicked voice hissed, "What did you just do? Are you trying to ruin everything?" Still half awake, Jamal frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Check your wife's Facebook." "Now!" The words hit like a blow. He snatched his phone, opening her profile. And there was the photo, the caption, the flood of likes and comments. His pulse quickened. Panic surged. In that instant, the calm, attentive man Simone knew evaporated. Fury boiled to the surface. Why did you post this? He demanded, storming toward her, phone in hand, his face flushed. Startled by his tone, Simone blinked. I wanted to share our happiness, she said softly, not understanding his sudden rage. I told you I don't like that stuff. Take it down. His voice cracked under the weight of anger. She stiffened. It's our wedding picture. This is my life, too. I can decide what I share. Her refusal only deepened his fear. The stakes were too high. Every second that post remained up was a step closer to everything unraveling, past cons exposed, his carefully built lies torn apart. For her, it was a simple celebration of love. For him, it was a ticking time bomb. His voice dropped, trembling with barely restrained anger. Delete it. What? I said delete the post. Her heart sank. The tenderness she was used to was gone. Why? It's just a picture of us. I was happy. I told you before, I don't want our life on social media. Why is that so hard for you to understand? She met his stare, hurt shimmering in her eyes. It's not about you. It's about me. I've waited my whole life for this moment. I've shared my struggles, my triumphs, and now you wanted to hide the happiest day of my life. Her words didn't calm him. They made his fear more real. What if someone recognized him? What if the lies he'd buried finally surfaced? It's not about happiness, he snapped. You don't get it. Just delete it. No, she said firmly, matching his intensity. He stared at her in disbelief. You're choosing some post over me? It's not the post. It's why you're so desperate to hide it. Why can't the world know we're married? Silence stretched between them, heavy and dangerous. He had no answer that wouldn't shatter the illusion. When she reached for a phone, intending to walk away, he lunged first, gripping her wrist. Give me your phone, he growled. No. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Just give it to me. Why are you acting like this? She shouted, voice cracking. This isn't you. But it was him, just not the version she had fallen in love with. The man in front of her was desperate, unrecognizable, consumed by fear. Tears welled in her eyes. This was supposed to be our fresh start. He said nothing. His focus was locked on her phone. His mind narrowed to one goal: make the post disappear. In one swift motion, he wrenched it from her grasp. You don't understand what you've done. Simone's tears spilled freely now. I trusted you, she whispered, her voice breaking. He ignored her, fumbling to unlock the phone, guessing her password. No, she screamed. That's mine. He kept tapping, hand shaking. Survival mode had taken over. And in that desperate struggle, her fighting to keep the phone, him fighting to erase the truth, their love story shattered. It was no longer about a picture. It was about staying invisible to the women he had conned before. Her refusal was final. She crossed her arms, meeting his stare through tear-blurred eyes. No, she said, voice trembling but unshakable. I won't unlock it. He froze, breath ragged, fists clenched tight at his sides. The room seemed to shrink around him, pressing in as if the walls themselves were closing. Fear twisted inside him, morphing into something hotter, darker, rage. You're ruining everything, Jamal shouted, stepping forward, his face tightening with frustration. Simone instinctively stepped back, putting space between them. Why does this matter so much to you? She whispered, barely audible, more to herself than to him. He didn't register her words, only the stubborn refusal in her tone. Panic and shame swirled in his chest, tangling with the terrifying realization that everything he had built was unraveling. In that split second, reason slipped away. Before she could retreat further, his hands lunged forward. He didn't think, he reacted. A hard shove to her shoulders. Time slowed. Simone's eyes went wide with shock, her arms flailing for balance. The balcony railing was low, far too low. No, she gasped, her voice a desperate plea, but her feet slipped. Then she was gone. The sickening sound of her body hitting the stone below cut through the air, sharp and final. For a heartbeat, there was only silence. The kind of silence that comes when the unthinkable has just happened. Jamal stumbled to the railing, heart pounding in his ears. Below, Simone lay motionless, sprawled at an unnatural angle, blood pooling beneath her. No, 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 he whispered, staggering backward, disbelief clawing at his mind. Shouts began to rise, rushed footsteps from the beach. A couple who had seen her fall sprinted toward her. Someone call for help, a voice cried. More people gathered, their voices a blur of fear and confusion. A man knelt beside her, 2 fingers pressed to her neck. His face fell, and he shook his head. She was gone. The woman who had fought so hard to rebuild her life was now lifeless. Above her, the man who once swore to protect her stood trembling. The weight of what he had done crushed him. It was an accident, Jamal muttered under his breath. I didn't mean to, but no one heard, no one believed. When officers entered the suite, they found him slumped in a chair, eyes darting between the balcony and the floor. His voice shook as he repeated the same words over and over. She slipped. I didn't mean for this to happen. The officers exchanged a look. Sir, stand up, one ordered. You don't understand. We were arguing. It got out of hand. Jamal pleaded. Stand up. The officer repeated, firmer. His knees buckled as he rose. Outside, guests whispered in hushed tones as paramedics wheeled Simone's covered body away. The once idyllic honeymoon spot was now a crime scene. Witnesses stepped forward. I heard yelling, one woman said. He sounded furious. I saw her fall, a man added. She was fighting to keep her balance. It wasn't an accident. The picture became clear. A confrontation had turned deadly. Officers cuffed Jamal and led him away, reciting his rights. His act of innocence had already crumbled. The investigation uncovered the truth. Jamal wasn't just a grieving husband. He was a practiced con artist. For years, he had targeted older, financially secure women at luxury resorts. He'd charm them, win their trust, then drain their bank accounts before vanishing. His lack of an online presence wasn't shyness. It was strategy. No photos, no trail, no way for past victims to find him. But one Facebook post, a simple picture celebrating love, had changed everything. It tied his face to his name for the first time, and from that thread, his whole web of deceit unraveled. Detectives found phone records linking him to multiple women. Financial records revealed a pattern. Lavish trips followed by sudden pleas for money, ending with emptied accounts. Some women were left bankrupt. Others barely recovered. Past victims came forward. He told me I was his everything, one woman said through tears. I believed him until he disappeared with all I had. Piece by piece, the case grew stronger. But this time, Jamal hadn't disappeared. He'd stayed long enough for the truth to catch up. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor called the Facebook post the key that exposed his crimes. The defense insisted it was a tragic accident, an argument gone too far. The prosecutor dismantled that claim, showing his history of manipulation and exploitation. The emotional peak came when Simone's family spoke. Her sister clutched a photo of Simone. She believed in love, she said, voice breaking, even after everything she'd been through. And he took that from her. He took her from us. Her brother's voice was heavy with grief. We trusted him because she did. He wasn't who he said he was. He robbed us of the chance to see her grow old. The judge delivered the sentence, life in prison without parole. The gavel struck, sealing his fate. Jamal Rivers was led away, no longer the charming figure who once fooled so many. His face was pale, hollow. For Simone's family, justice brought some closure, but not healing. Her story became a reminder that trust is a gift, and in the wrong hands, it can be deadly. Simone Harper's family had every reason to collapse under the crushing weight of grief. They had lost someone they loved in the most horrific way, betrayed by the very man who had vowed to protect her. But instead of being consumed by their pain, they chose to rise from it, determined to turn tragedy into change. Her sister became a powerful voice for those silenced by manipulation and deceit, speaking at conferences and across online platforms about the importance of recognizing the signs of emotional abuse. Her brother, once quiet and reserved, found his own strength by supporting organizations dedicated to preventing scams and exploitation. Their transformation, from grief-stricken mourners to determined advocates, was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Yet, It also raised difficult questions. Why do so many people overlook red flags in relationships? Is it because love clouds our judgment, or because we refuse to believe someone we care for could hide something so devastating? At what point does a request for privacy stop being about personal boundaries and start becoming a warning sign? Jamal Rivers' insistence on keeping their relationship offline might have seemed harmless, even understandable. Many people value their privacy, but for him, it was never about protecting their love. It was about hiding his lies. It's easy to look back and judge, but how many of us would truly notice these signs in our own lives? If someone you loved insisted on hiding your relationship from the world, how would you react? Would you respect their wishes? Or would you ask yourself why your happiness had to be a secret? These aren't just questions about one tragic story. They're questions about trust, boundaries, and the fragile line between love and control. Simone's story is more than a tragedy. It's a reflection on the devastating impact of lies and betrayal. One single post, meant to celebrate love, became the spark that ignited a fatal chain of events. It's a stark reminder that the truths we hide, whether out of fear, shame, or selfishness, can have far-reaching consequences. For Simone, those hidden truths ended a life filled with hope and resilience. The lesson remains: trust is fragile. When it's broken, the scars spread far beyond those directly involved. We often ask ourselves how well we know the people we love, but perhaps the real question is, how well do they allow us to know them? If Simone's story resonates with you, share your thoughts. Have you ever overlooked red flags because of love or trust? What would you do if someone you cared for demanded secrecy? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories of betrayal, hidden lives, and the pursuit of justice, subscribe and turn on notifications. Our next story will take you deeper into the tangled world of deception and trust. Another case that will leave you questioning everything. Stay tuned. If this story moved you, there's so much more to uncover. Subscribe now to never miss the drama, the emotion, and the untold truths. Join the journey. Hit that button and be part of the next stories. This is Ruthless Realities. Until next time.